If you're born in America, you're probably a Christian. If you're born in Pakistan, you're probably a Muslim. That's a coincidence, isn't it? You're always born into the right God. Always, isn't that lucky? I was born into the right God. All those others are going to hell. But I was born into the right religion. I'm going to heaven. It's strange that we hold on to these sort of medieval beliefs. You know, where did the universe come from? God made it. Which doesn't solve the problem for me. Because we straight away say, well, who made God? And if they say, well, he's always been around, we'll just say the universe out then. Let's just cut out a middleman. It saves time.
Yes, if we accept that we don't know, if it's default, we don't know, no one's come back from heaven, no one's proved it. You can't prove the non-existence of something, and why would you? The periodic table of non-existent things is infinite, you know. It's like... so if we accept that, that's a not...
Oh God, let me go in here and act like I give a fuck and be fake for 8 motherfucking hours. God damn! Oh shit, why I gotta keep coming? Oh, give me another.
I put a speaker in my friend's trunk and played honking sounds.
Bro, they seriously honking at me. I'm literally doing nothing wrong and I'm the only car. Like, what am I doing? It's a red light. What do you want from me? Like, I'm literally 3 seconds away from just, like, I'm gonna pick it up. Let's go. Go. It's a joke. Oh, it's a joke.
I put a speaker in my...
Curious to see everybody
shaking because all of your stabilizing muscles that don't always fire when you do traditional free weights. So as I'm pushing harder, the machine is intuitively giving me more weight.
Ribelod in Netherlands, or Ribelod?
Yes, Ribelod.
Ribelod, welcome. Thank you so much for calling. How can we help?
Thank you for taking my call. I basically have a question. Regarding morality and atheism, how can atheists be moral in the absence of God?
Arden, how can you be moral in the absence of a God?
Well, I have a brain, and I have empathy, and I know when people hurt me, it feels shitty, and I don't want to hurt other people, because then I assume that they feel shitty. It's also not advantageous for me to hurt people, because I would gain a reputation for being a shitty person, and people probably wouldn't allow me to participate in society in the way that I need to. There's a lot of different reasons that you do moral things. My moral compass is harm, or like harm reduction, and causing like good and flourishing.
Yeah. One of the things to point out is that atheism isn't the lack of existence of God, it's the lack of belief in God. And I've argued, I wonder how some people can be moral with the presence of a belief in a God, because depending on which God they believe in, the various gods advocate for things, or supposedly advocate for things that are immoral. For example, within the Bible, if the God of the Bible is real and true, then the God of the Bible sanctions slavery, and the God of the Bible sanctions women being inferior to men and not being allowed to own property and other things like that. You go to other religions, you're going to find different models of God where I have moral objections to them. So I would say, I don't want to just shrug this off, but if you Google superiority of secular morality, you can find a couple different versions of a talk that I gave about how the secular moral system that I advocate for is vastly superior to any that's put forward by any religion. But I think the question I have to ask you is, how are you defining what is moral? Because if you say morality is that which agrees with the mind of God, and I say morality is that which impacts the well-being of thinking creatures, then clearly we don't mean the same thing by morality. So what do you mean by morality?
Well, I basically, the way I define morality is whatever God says something is right.
Okay. If your definition of morality is whatever God says is right, how do we know what God said?
Well, I mean, that's another question.
Yes, that's why I asked it. I'm aware it's another question. I'm saying if your definition of morality is that which God says is moral, my next question is, how do we know what God has said? Because I'm not aware that there is a God. I don't believe there's one. And I'm not aware that any God has ever said anything to any human being. So how could we make a list of things that you know, name one thing that you know God said and how you know God said it. One thing.
One thing. Well, I mean, he has said a lot of things, but I mean, if you take one thing, it's kindness and being good to other humans.
Okay, so I asked you.
Sum that up.
I asked you to name one thing that you know God has said, and how you know God said it. And then you said he said all the things, which I could have predicted you would say. And then you said kindness. How do you know that God said kindness?
Well, if I want to get real deep, I don't actually know. I mean,
there you go. And neither do I. And so if you're going to define morality as something God said, and you don't know what God said, then you have no morality. Which means of the two of us, I should be asking you, how can you possibly be moral when your definition of morality is something that you acknowledge you cannot attain at all?
And doesn't it kind of scare you, Ribelod, that your compass is whatever God says? Because what if you became convinced that God said killing your mother was moral? would you then feel okay about going and killing your mom, or would you have a reservation about that? I suspect you'd probably not be too comfortable with that, right? Like that seems like not a good compass to have.
That comes down from, let's say God appears in front of me and he says, do X. I would actually do it, because if he's all knowing,
Oh, yikes.
he's better than me. Right?
That's scary.
Well, I find, sure, that is the type of thing that people will say. However, neither you nor me have any example of any God ever coming down and saying, do X. And so until that happens, at a minimum, you have no moral foundation, which means you are necessarily an amoral creature with no hope of morality, because you based your moral foundation on something that has not happened and that you can't demonstrate happened. You might as well be saying your morality is whatever Fergal says.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, it's a word I made up specifically for this purpose.
Okay.
So, of the two of us, I have an actual moral foundation that I can point to. And it's not, it doesn't cover everything. It is growing, it is changing. It is based on notions of well-being. Arden has a foundation that is based on harm reduction. While the two of us aren't going to agree on everything related to morality, at least the two of us can have a conversation about our foundations and say, here's where I think this one edges it out, or here's where I think this one edges it out.
And I think we
can
more
come
or
to
less do
agreement.
the same thing by our...
We may find that my concern about well-being is fundamentally identical to her reduction of harm. But at least we can have a conversation about morality. You, with your foundation, cannot do that.
Yo, Big Tony.
Sharon is coming.
What the fuck is this?
This is the Heron's Grace, Orphanage. Here you will earn your keep.
And don't think that I will go lightly on you, new boy. You cannot hide behind that crutch.
I expect a good day's work out of you two, or I'll throw you over the walls.
For the werewolves.
Is this a movie or a game, or?
My apples?
Get your dinner.
Next time, I won't be lenient.
Fix him up, Doug. I've got a schedule to keep.
Would you like me to help you?
Yes. Please.
Just breathe. When the moon is full and bright, and children lie awake in fright, beware the beast that lurks the halls, to chew you up, bones and all. But do not cry when it draws near, for the beast can smell your fear.
That's what you'll get if you don't.
cannot hide behind that crutch.
I admit, I mean, I have a belief. I don't have the hardcore proof, that these things come from God, but that's where I believe a belief, you need to have some belief, and
Why?
in my opinion,
Why?
Something higher.
Why?
Otherwise, what's the purpose of life? I mean, just,
Well, so that's a different question. What's the purpose of life, to use your own phrase? What do you think the purpose of life is? Because I don't think the purpose of life has anything to do with the God. I don't think there is any externally imposed purpose. I think my life has whatever purpose and meaning I give it.
But wouldn't that be arbitrary? Like, it could be whatever?
It is not necessarily arbitrary, but is it subjective? Yes. The meaning and purpose of my life is mine. Why would I want it any other way? Would you like to be born and have everything laid out for you? Here's who you're going to marry. Here's what job you're going to do. Everything dictated by somebody else. Would you want to live in a world like that?
No, not by another human being, no.
Well, why then, if you wouldn't want it dictated by another human being, would you want it dictated by a God who you can't even demonstrate is real?
I would not mind it be dictated by God, because He would know.
That's sad.
So
that is absolutely sad that in any other circumstance, if the government or your parents or a human being told you what the purpose of your life was, you would start a revolution. But as soon as someone tells you that a God that you have never met, can't identify, can't show exists, as soon as somebody tells you that that God has a purpose for you, all of a sudden you're okay with that. I find that to be one of the most saddening and maddening things I've ever heard, and I've heard it many times. Why are you okay with the notion that some God out there views you as a plaything, and that he doesn't want you to have free will, doesn't want you to be the governor of your life? Why is it okay?
I mean, the way that I think about it, like, if there is a God and He knows everything, I don't see it's right for me to say, I know better than you, because He would have an infinite amount of knowledge, so how can I tell Him?
I didn't say anything about knowing more than a God. How do you know that just because God has a plan for you, that a plan that is actually good for you?
That I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot you don't know. And I didn't know it either, which is why I stopped running around acting as if I knew it and acting as if I believed it. Do you at least, because I've got him on to other callers for a little, but do you at least understand how Arden and I can have a foundation for morality and live a moral life? And those who are advocating for a morality based on God are on questionable footing at best?
Yeah, I mean, Arden explained, the thought pattern there, so it cleared it up a little bit, but, there's a lot of, I'm still interested in this, so, yeah.
I appreciate it. I've got to move on to some other callers, but think on it some more and give us a call back.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Was it a little bird with a broken leg? The Bazaar needs good people.
You're doing great so far.
Mike, my son, Rafael, he's in trouble. I gotta get him out of Mexico.
Touch me and then keep your ass on me.
Let's go.
Franco is mine.
We gotta get out of here. You're a cowboy?
I used to be a lot of things. We all have to make choices in life, kid. You have to make yours.
Fred Macho in theaters and on HBO Max. Rated PG-13.
So, how on earth can you be moral? It is funny to me.
I mean, I think it's interesting because, sure, if there were somebody who knew absolutely everything, and I could be sure of that, and they could tell me this is the path that will lead to, like, I don't know, the most happiness or something for you. But by that, I'm assuming that would be, I don't know. I can imagine if that were true, then sure, I could see where someone's coming from. But if that can't be demonstrated, then why would you listen to what someone says? Any Joe Blow could walk up to you and say, "I know everything, and this is the best path for you," and you would be just on just the same footing as it was with God. So
yeah, you can. So the people behind the scenes can stick a marker here for this to be cut out. And that's this. I'm supremely confident that there isn't any being that knows everything, because if there was a being who knew everything, they would know my sincere desire to know that they knew everything, and they would also understand that as a being myself who cannot know everything, I could never have a rational basis to determine that they in fact knew everything. If I'm not capable of knowing everything, how can I know who is? Because I would have to have that level of knowledge. And if such a being existed and were moral at all, and were good at all, and had any interest in me, or had any concern about me knowing that it existed, it would know exactly what it would need to do to convince me and everybody else, and it would have already done it. And the fact that that hasn't happened, which I said before, is a demonstration that either that kind of being doesn't exist, or that being doesn't want me to know it exists. But in the case of the previous caller, it's a huge assumption to go from, well, maybe there's a God that can serve as a foundation for morality and give my life meaning and purpose, and I'll just go ahead and assume it, because if that being exists, it clearly knows everything. Well, first of all, even if it knows more than you, that doesn't mean it knows everything. And even if it knows everything, there's no demonstration that it is working in your best interest. You've assumed that there's a being, that it wants what's best for you, that it knows everything, that it knows better than you, and that it's going to have a plan, purpose for your life, and yet it's not going to communicate with you and tell you what that plan or purpose is.
Yeah, and I mean, and what standard are we using for what's best for me? Because, like, if I want to advance as much as I can in the society that we have, then I would do things very differently than if I'm trying to live a life that makes me happy and fulfilled and satisfied. But yeah, there's so many moving parts there that it's.
It reminds me a little bit of the call earlier with Hank, with animals, where there's an assumption that just because we're capable of using an animal doesn't, that somehow that's good. Well, it's definitely good for us. But in your case, as somebody who's trans, if there was a God, then that means that a God had you born a certain way and set you up in this position. And what Christians will say, like, and I don't want to equate the two, that's not what I'm doing, but anytime there's something that Christians would view as an obstacle in your path, being trans, being gay, having whatever, God put that there to grow you as a character and needed you. It's all post hoc rationalization, one after the other, because they can't show their God exists. And so instead they're just going to assume the best on behalf of God, no matter what happens to anybody else.
Right. Yeah. Who cares if that makes you suicidal? It's just a good challenge.
Yeah. It was.
Thanks, God.
You needed to overcome that so that you could come on the atheist experience and argue against that God.
Questioning the thoughts from which
Atheist Experience. We are live today. It's Saturday, June 16, 2019, unless you're watching this later. I'm your host, Matt Delaney. Joining me this week,
Eric Murphy.
Yes. Yep. That's it. We're done. Yep. No, it's so first of all, it's Pride Month.
It is.
So cool. Enjoy your Pride if you're doing that. By the way, if you're one of those idiots who asks, "What you got to be proud about being gay?" You probably could, I don't know, do a half a second's worth of research to figure out that when people are constantly telling people that they should be ashamed for who they are, pride is a natural actual response. They're not appreciating their achievement of becoming LGBTQ. They're recognizing that you don't get to shit all over them for being who they are. So, and that means that the pumpkin-loving Make America Straight Again haters having their little conference in Orlando, yeah, we see you and we are demolishing you. So,
cheers to that. It's Father's Day as well.
Wait for pumpkins. Yeah. It is Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to everybody. I already called my dad today to tell him Happy Father's Day. And while I know I talked about the birthday card and other stuff, I still get along with my folks. I still love my folks. My dad is awesome. Worked his ass off for his entire life. Still working. Not yet retired. And I'm actually looking forward to the day when he feels comfortable retiring. But it's not a rush. I'm never going to get to retire. I already know that. I'll work till I'm dead.
Oh, dude, but that's because you want to.
Yeah, well, it's also because I'm a broke son of a bitch. No, it's good stuff. And so,
if you want to change that, the atheist debate, he can't say because it'll be weird, but he does the atheist debates if you want to support Matt.
Oh yeah, patreon.com/atheist debates. And
but if you want to support this
debates coming up, yes, and that's worth reminding because you're actually watching like the live chat and everything else.
I am.
But thank you to all the patrons for the Atheist Experience, the Atheist Community of Austin, Talk Heathen, I don't know, everything, and also thanks to you people who aren't actually patrons because we're going to do this show no matter what. So getting the support from people is good. And it's nice to know that there are people who are benefiting and appreciating the work that everybody involved with all these shows is doing, including the people on the other side over there, which I know Silas wasn't ready for, so he's not going to show you now. But I'm vamping to give him enough time to actually do it.
We love and appreciate them very much. There they are. Those are the people who actually make this happen. Those are the ones who make this work. Thank you so much.
There's the Lord of Levels himself. So there are other potential announcements. There's a bunch of stuff going on at the ACA. Next week, Don Baker's going to be on here with me, and we're going to, Don doesn't know this yet, so hi, Don. We're going to talk a little bit about, we'll still take calls like normal, but we're going to talk a little bit about the history of the ACA, history of the Atheist Experience, because he's done it actually longer than I have, and what's coming up and what changes, and we're all excited.
Oh, yeah. Personally, also, I'm going to be in Tennessee. Hi, Jen. For the Ask and Wonder event. So if anybody's down in Tennessee, it's going to be at the Donaldson Fellowship at 6 to 8 p.m. And after that, I'm going to meet up with fans at McNamara Irish Pub.
6 to 8 p.m. what day?
Oh, that would be good. June 22nd. So if you're down in the area, come give me a shout. I'm not going to be on the shows next weekend for that reason, but loving it, man.
You're doing like a team debate against a couple of presupps.
Presuppositional apologists, yes. I hate myself, apparently.
I got over that self-loathing right after I finished with that guy.
Okay.
That guy.
Okay.
I guess that's it. I don't have more announcements.
Dude, let's dive into calls. That's what people want.
All right. We're going to start with, is it RAO?
R-A-O.
R-A-O. Oh, it's all caps. RAO in Wyoming. You're on with Matt and Eric.
Well, it's great to talk to y'all. Great to talk to you again, Eric. And
hello.
It's an honor to finally get to talk to you, Matt.
Oh, thanks. I'm going to interrupt you because I have one more announcement thing that I did forget, and it was literally sitting right here, right in front of my face. I got a wonderful T-shirt today from the Atheist Community of Lubbock. So for all those people, all those times where I joked, I said, oh, I don't, people would say, aren't you terrified doing the show in Texas? And I'd say, well, not in Austin, but maybe in Lubbock. Now I would not be terrified to do the show in Lubbock as well. So kudos to that community. What do you got for us, REO? Is that like REO Speedwagon? And you just changed it?
It was supposed to be, but when I was born, my dad had hit the tequila a little bit hard. He had managed to misspell 3 letters that don't even make a word.
That's awesome. I mean, it's unique.
Yeah. Well, I can add the one and only to my name without adding my last name.
Sweet. Sure. So anyway, you wanted to call in specifically to prove something to me?
Well, I've actually been working on this argument for about 3 months because I know that at any point in time I'm about 3 words away from a checkmate with you. So.
And checkmate which direction?
Straight. I'm 3 words from a loss at any given time. So
Okay.
That's why I spent 3 months working on this argument.
Okay. I'm eager to hear it.
I can demonstrate how you worship a god, regardless of whether or not, or a deity, I'm sorry, whether or not you believe in it. And
See, that's not possible.
Believe
Matt, you've been holding out.
is your worship of that god.
No, see, that's not possible because worship is an act of
What's up, guys? Oh, I've only been here for 30 minutes. That's good. Because the first 10 minutes I was rolling up and watching Instagram. But just working on adding some more detail to the movie cases. The movie at the bottom is A Scanner Darkly. So yeah, just trying to So putting my own little spin on a classic still life. Ouch. What up with you guys? It is 2 o'clock in the morning where I'm at. And I'm up painting. Up painting at 2 in the morning. Yeah, everybody doing good over here. About to be doing extra good right about now. Yep. Oh, I didn't say where the fuck I set that doobie at? I set it on my lap. I thought I set it on the ashtray. You know how we do it, bro. That shit don't never get old, homie. That shit don't never get old. Be the same shit all the time. Oh yeah. Damn. Alright. I'm really enjoying this painting, yo. This shit is coming out hot as fuck, son. I can't even lie. I'm really enjoying this shit. Exactly. Just on the strength of perseverance, nigga. You know what I'm saying? I shall overcome with this Guinness. I feel you, bro. And you got my full support. I'm about to down this doobie. In the name of perseverance. Alright. Let me get back to the painting. I really, I don't know. I might. You know what? Let's go ahead and do that part right there. Get that shit started now. It's him and I, Aquemini. Let me see, I might put the white screen up to see if that helps with this part. Maybe. Who got free screeners to the new Doom? Nigga, I'm snatching tickets, nigga. Let me get that. Yo, I'm gonna get HBO Max just for that shit, son. When that shit come out, let me go ahead and get a month of HBO Max, nigga. I don't wanna go sit in the theater. People gonna fuck that shit up for me. I'd rather sit home and watch that shit, bro. You talking microdosing? Yeah, I don't watch the new trailer. I don't watch the breakdown of the trailer. You know what? I'm trying to find a better image and see if I can blow something up. But even in these, like, you can't really see how he, well, almost how the Q is, because the signature is behind the big words are. So they got the printed font, but then like behind the print font is his signature. But it's hard to see how he writes his C. I don't know, I guess it doesn't matter, like I said, because it's gonna get covered up. And then his S, it loops around like this. And then he makes an E. And it should end like here. Alright, so this, let me see. Haha, that's what it looks like. I think I should have wrote that a little bit lower. I might drop that down a little bit too, but I heard even Ninth Wonder is begging AZ to do some fucking tracks, yo. They like, please, my nigga, come back. Just give us one more album, yo. And once again, I say it over and over, yo, all my old heads can still put out music, nigga. All my old heads can still drop albums, yo. These young boys ain't gonna be able to do that shit in 20 years. Ain't nobody gonna want to listen to no new shit from these niggas in 20 years. Like, go sit the fuck down somewhere, homie. Oh. I gotta erase the dust on the wet paint. Damn, that's fucked up. I'm gonna have to figure out how to clean that off somehow. I've been listening to that King Disease Part 2 for weeks now. That shit and Tyler the Creator last album he put out. That's really what's been on rotation on my playlist, yo. King Disease and that Tyler shit. I forgot the name of that album, but Rolls Royce pull up, Black Boy hop out. Shout out to my mother and my father didn't pull out. Yo, this yellow is so fucking see-through, that shit don't even work like I want it to. It's all good. You know what, little bitch? I don't need you. I just feel like I'm about to fuck this shit up, bro. Y'all ready? Alright. It ain't gotta be straight. It just gotta look straight. Come on. This nigga can't draw a circle, yo. Should I pull out my compass to draw these circles? Or should I just like freehand these circles, man? Woo! okay, that's kind of circly, you know, it's like, it's kind of circle. It's close enough. It's good enough to be a circle. Let's see. Red. I mean, it's a loop. It's circle-like. I mean, it's a little wobbly, but for the most part. Damn, I almost forgot what the fuck I listened to, but I was concentrating on making that circle so hard. Let's listen to
She takes a picture, and in that picture is CT. He puts the camera over in that direction, and everyone looking in that direction at that moment.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. As American forces were pulling Afghanistan this summer, Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, announced a new and highly innovative intelligence partnership. The Pentagon, Milley explained, would begin sharing classified information with the Taliban. Yes, the Taliban, the bearded religious extremists in man pajamas that for 20 years we've been told pose a major threat to us in the United States. But no longer. They're our partners now. The Biden administration, Milley explained, was even open to coordinating with the Taliban in counter-terrorism strikes against our new enemy, a shadowy group that may or may not actually exist, called ISIS-K.
We don't know what the future of the Taliban is, but I can tell you from personal experience that this is a ruthless group from the past, and whether or not they change remains to be seen. And as far as our dealings with them at that airfield or in the past year or so, in war, you do what you must to reduce risk to mission and force, not what you necessarily want to do.
Any possibility of coordination against ISIS-K with them?
It's possible.
Because when you're fighting ISIS-K, no holds are barred. So the first of Milley's coordinated attacks against ISIS-K 3 weeks ago was August 29th. That was just days after 13 American servicemen were killed in a bombing at the Kabul airport, a date you remember well. At the time, even Democrats were pointing out the obvious: Joe Biden is senile and totally incompetent. So the administration at that moment desperately needed something to prove they are not senile and incompetent. They are instead decisive and strong. And what better way to do that than kill people? So that day, the U.S. military bombed a white Toyota in a residential complex not far from the Kabul airport. The White House touted that strike as a demonstration of our over-the-horizon military capabilities in Afghanistan, particularly against ISIS-K. Now, Mark Milley, who's pretty young to be senile, but often seems like it, strongly agreed this was a good thing.
But at this point, we think that the procedures were correctly followed, and it was a righteous strike.
When we say good thing, we meant righteous. That was a righteous strike. And everyone in Washington agreed. One unnamed U.S. defense official described TAC to our Jennifer Griffin this way, quote, multiple suicide bombers inside the vehicle struck by U.S. drone today in Kabul. Significant explosives in the vehicle led to secondary explosions. Bombers belonged to ISIS-K, and they were en route to Kabul airport, end quote. So it's perfect. All the bad people were dead. Those ISIS-K operatives. And virtually every news organization in the country parroted this account. They were grateful to give poor old Joe Biden credit for something. The Washington Post assigned 5 reporters to the story. They dug deep. They concluded that Biden's drone attack had hit, quote, an Islamic State target. On television, where there's mostly no reporting at all, they just read the paper and repeat it, not a single person seemed very skeptical of this.
Our ability to demonstrate effectively, we can strike such targets once the intelligence cues them up. We can strike them from outside Afghan borders, which is a critical element of the Biden plan once we withdraw. So this over-the-horizon capability demonstrated, I thought it was effective.
You call this strike remarkable.
This is a realization of what President Biden calls the over-the-horizon strategy.
The military event today is so much more than just a single drone strike. It is a projection of power. It is a message from the United States government that even though we're leaving, we're not done with counterterrorism operations. Even though we're going to have to do this, as they say, over the horizon from remote locations, and it's going to be far more challenging, we can still do it.
So keep in mind, every single one of the people you just saw speaking knew nothing, literally nothing about this drone strike other than what they read on Twitter. They were totally ignorant. And that did not prevent them, as it never does, from trying to sound totally authoritative. That's our news coverage. Soon, however, a few people started to ask the obvious questions. For example, who exactly had the U.S. military killed? When asked, the Defense Department wouldn't say. Oh, that might have been a tip. DoD also would show no proof of those secondary explosions, the explosions that proved the vehicle was being driven by ISIS-K suicide bombers. Instead, Mark Milley just assured the country those secondary explosions were real, they happened, we know, and the rest of us need to take his word for it. And that was exactly the line from Pentagon's top flack, known liar, John Kirby.
2 quick questions, if I may. On the strike against the vehicle, the Central Command talked about secondary explosions, I think, in that, but do you actually have visual evidence that there were secondary explosions? Are you convinced that there were? Because that seems to be one of the potential contributing factors to civilian casualties. So are you certain there were secondary explosions? Can you, I just have a follow-up on a different part of this. Can you say how you're sure? No.
Ooh, liar. Not the first time, not the 50th time. Are you sure they were secondary explosions? Yes. How do you know for sure? I'm not going to tell you. And he never did. Neither John Kirby nor anyone else at the Pentagon ever corrected that story. But the New York Times did, to their rare credit. More than a week ago, the New York Times ran a piece revealing with video evidence that the Biden administration's drones did not actually kill anyone from ISIS-K, whoever they are, assuming they exist. The drone killed a civilian aid worker in a car full of kids. There were no bombs in the Toyota. They had bottles of water, which are very different from bombs in that they don't explode, even secondarily. Finally, this afternoon, the Biden administration was forced to stop lying. So here's General Kenneth McKenzie, the head of U.S. Central Command.
Having thoroughly reviewed the findings of the investigation,
and the supporting analysis by interagency partners, I am now convinced that as many as 10 civilians, including up to 7 children, were tragically killed in that strike. Moreover, we now assess that it is unlikely that the vehicle and those who died were associated with ISIS-K or were a direct threat to U.S. forces.
Okay. After consulting with our interagency partners, all of whom get the New York Times delivered at home, we are admitting that we lied to you for weeks about what we actually did. It was not ISIS-K, there were no suicide bombers, there were no second... explosions, it was kids and water bottles. In his remarks today, most tellingly, General McKenzie declined to announce any consequences for this, either for the killing of children or for the lying about it for weeks. Now, why is that? We think we know. Back on September 1st, Mark Milley explained that the drone strike of August 29th wasn't out of the ordinary. In fact, it followed the very same procedures as every other drone strike over the last 20 years in Afghanistan.
We had very good intelligence that ISIS-K was preparing a specific type vehicle at a specific type location. We monitored that through various means, and all of the engagement criteria were being met. We went through the same level of rigor that we've done for years, and we took a strike.
Oh, we had very good intelligence. Likely the same kind of intelligence that led us to believe that German-educated Saudis would never fly airplanes into the World Trade Centers or the Pentagon or a field in Pennsylvania. The intelligence that told us the Berlin Wall wasn't about to fall. The intelligence that told us it was fine to give up Bagram Air Base because Kabul was safe. The government would stand. That intelligence. So the drone strike of August 29th that killed a car full of children underwent, and we're quoting, the same level of rigor that we have done for years. Well, that's not very reassuring, is it? But you will not find a more revealing statement about our Pentagon leaders. It explains why no one has been punished for this disaster. If you fire Mark Milley for killing a bunch of kids unintentionally and then lying about it, maybe the accountability chain will start. Maybe they'll want to fire whoever left hundreds of American citizens behind in Afghanistan and lied about that. So you can't start firing people just because they're terrible at their jobs, obviously. So you can't fire anyone. That's the rule. Joe Kent was a Green Beret in the Army Special Forces. His wife also served in the military. She was killed in Syria in an...
Whoa. This October.
Where am I?
LOL Surprise takes you on a brand new adventure.
You're fabulous and never gonna finish this movie if we don't get
actual ISIS attack. Joe Kent is running to represent the state of Washington in the Congress, and we're not ashamed to say we are rooting for him. He joins us tonight. Joe Kent, thanks so much for coming on. So no one's being punished for this, once again. What does that tell you?
No, it tells us pretty much everything we need to know. I think from the onset here, it's evident that the DoD, the military, had no plan to withdraw. They've really been throwing a tantrum ever since. That's evident in the way that the whole withdrawal went, us leaving U.S. citizens behind. And then we've had this narrative that the Taliban is one of two things. The Taliban can be our new counterterrorism partner. With that will come the ability to transfer more wealth from the military-industrial complex. Or that the Taliban cannot be trusted, as this strike has proven, and now we need to go back in. This over-the-horizon capability that Joe Biden talks about, that I think there is some validity to, that really is not a boom for the military-industrial complex. So really, when they were looking at the strike criteria for this hit, it was win-win for them. If it went well, then that proved that the Taliban can be trusted and we have a new partner. If it went poorly, oh well, too bad. Now we just have to go back in, and that's the course of action the Pentagon is going to continue to brief. They really have, there's no accountability and there's no actual onus on them to perform. And guys like McKenzie continue to talk about this stuff like it's just another day at the office. He did that after the 13 soldiers were killed. He said, oh, well, these things happen. And then today, the bad strike that killed innocent women and children and probably radicalized more people, oh, well, that's just another thing that happens. Zero accountability, and it needs to end.
Well, it's the lying, I think, that's the most corrosive. I mean, if your drone strikes the wrong target and innocents are killed, and you admit it and mourn their deaths and apologize, hold people who made the mistake accountable, I think everybody understands in this country and around the world. But if you lie, if you pretend the vaccines work really well when they don't, or whatever, if you pretend there was a secondary explosion when there wasn't, then no one believes you at all. They don't see this?
No, they don't. They're too far in their own worlds with their individual desire to continue the war or to pursue whatever course of action they want, either finding that new counterterrorism partner or finding a justification to go back in. So the lies compound upon lies. And they're all concerned, from McKinsey to Milley to Austin, that if we start having accountability for the way that this botched withdrawal went, then we're going to start looking at when the lies started. And the lies go back decades. In Afghanistan, they go back to the beginning of the war on terror, the Iraq war, etc. So they don't want to start peeling away at that sweater that's going to dissolve very quickly.
Ah, it's such a shame. I suspect you're absolutely right in everything you said. Joe Kent, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So if you care about the country, what you mourn most of all is the decline of American credibility. Douglas Murray sees that from abroad. He's from Great Britain, but he's a keen observer of the United States. He's a best-selling author. Wish he was an advisor. He joins us tonight with a reaction to all of this. Douglas Murray, thank you very much for coming. What do you make of this?
I think all of this is a reminder of why the politicization of American military and the politicization of the American intelligence community has been so devastating for this country. Speaking of myself, if this had happened 15, 20 years ago, I might have thought, well, people get things wrong. It's a tragedy, but they get things wrong. Now, we're not in that position, because the politicization, the self-politicization of the American military and the American intelligence agencies has meant that they are completely transparent to you, me, all of the American public. Their reputation for competency is shot. Their reputation for trustworthiness is shot. Their reputation of just being believable is completely shot. General Milley himself, we've seen this with the Afghan army. He kept on making, not just in July, but for years, claims about the Afghan army that were totally wrong. He said in July that they could stand on their own. Totally wrong. We discovered just a few days ago that he was conspiring with his Chinese counterpart. He behaved as if America is a military junta, where generals can just speak to other countries and say, you don't need to listen to the president, I'm going round the president. So General Milley says something now. We don't believe him like we might have believed the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff even 10 years ago.
So that really is the cost of all of this. The second you politicize an the entire country that's really supposed to be helping to run the world, then you reduce your own power. I mean, it's a self-destructive move, isn't it?
Yes. It's unbelievably self-destructive, and it's not just General Milley. It's general after general. It's agency after agency. Just look at another example, just on the top of my head. Look at General Michael Hayden. I met him a couple of times. He's very respected, former head of the CIA, very respected, former head of the NSA. In recent months, in recent weeks, he's on Twitter tweeting out a picture of the Taliban in Afghanistan and tweeting underneath it a photograph of Trump supporters with Trump flags on their cars. It says, their Taliban and our Taliban. What are we meant to think when we see former directors of the NSA and CIA saying that supporters of President Trump are exactly analogous with the Taliban in Afghanistan? All of these people have made total fools of themselves in recent years. The American public are right to be saying, what have we been paying for? What is this expertise we've been expecting? Where's the competency? And then when something like this happens, we don't just think, well, bad things happen in war. No, we think, what have people been paying for all these decades? What have all these American service personnel been paying for with their lives when we have incompetency of this kind every level of the top? The people underneath, the people serving in the American armed forces are not incompetent. The people at the top seem to be. Many good people are in the intelligence agencies, but the heads of them seem to be rotten. This is a terrible state of affairs, and it has to be rectified. It has to be turned around. It can't just be covered over any longer.
Yeah, I mean, the scary part is that once they've revealed who they really are, they can't really walk it back. I mean, they've burned their ships at this point, don't you think?
Well, it may be the case, but America has to demand better from this. All of the agencies, the CIA, NSA, the military, all these agencies that have had these pristine reputation for years as competent, if they can't do basic things, if they can't hold an airport in Kabul, if they can't carry out military strike effectively, if they can't stop insulting half of the American public, then they aren't fit for purpose and they need to be replaced. And I think everybody, the Biden administration, everybody has to have this on their minds. The American military and intelligence agencies used to be respected in this country, and they should be respected. But they cannot be respected when they're not just incompetent, but untrustworthy.
That is such a wise point and true. Douglas Murray, thank you. Good to see you.
It's a great pleasure. Likewise.
So that transparent administration history has tried to shut down our reporting at the southern border. They don't want you to see what's going on there, the crisis they're creating. So they issued an order preventing our drone from capturing images on the ground in Del Rio, Texas. Fox News did not back down, and as we promised, we have an update for you on how that story ended for that day. How many remember the conclusions of the 9/11 Commission? That report came out in 2004. We reread some of it today. It outlined the intel failures that cost thousands of lives in this country. And that report included this admonition, in case you didn't read it the first time. Quote, "It is elemental to border security to know who is coming into the country. Today, more than 9 million people are in the United States outside the legal immigration system. We must also be able to monitor and respond to entrances between our points of entry, working with Canada and Mexico as much as possible," end quote. So that was 20 years ago, 20 years after 9/11. Our border with Mexico is now completely open. In this year, more than 1 million people will come across, hundreds of thousands every single month. The clearest illustration of the crisis that's happening now is in Del Rio, Texas. In Del Rio, thousands of illegal migrants have set up an encampment that is the size of a small town. Watch.
We are just on the Texas side of the Rio Grande River at about the point where thousands and thousands of Haitians are crossing over into the city of Del Rio. And there are over 10,000 now that are being allowed to pour over the border. The vast majority of them seem to be Haitian, the ones that I've talked to. That right there is the international bridge, providing some shelter and cover for these immigrants who are being allowed to just cross over, and they're going to probably be living here for weeks as thousands more come. I'm going to show you the underside of this bridge. There are just thousands and thousands camped. Border Patrol is totally overwhelmed. They can't possibly process these people.
This poor soul's journey has come to an end. From dust he started.
As well as free health care and welfare benefits and education and all the good things that come with living in this country, all of which you pay for. Now, the Biden administration is pretty intent that you not know this, that you just get back to your Netflix and weed and kind of forget that America's changing right out from underneath you. All this is being done in your name, but just shh. You're not invited to comment on it. So during our broadcast last night, we learned that the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, had issued an order banning drones from operating above the encampment you just saw in Del Rio. Now, why did they do that? One reason. For the last 7 months, Fox News alone among big media outlets has been operating a drone in that area. In the past few days, those drones were capturing image of the total collapse of the border there at Del Rio. Total collapse. And the Biden administration hated that. So Pete Buttigieg, who somehow oversees the FAA's transportation secretary, grounded our drone. The Biden administration cited security concerns. What were those security concerns? There were no security concerns. The FAA's order didn't explain what the special security reason was. They never explained anything because it's not real. It's a lie, just like those secondary explosions in the drone strike. It was nothing more than a pretext to shut us down. And we've reported for months on the show about how the FAA has become politicized, and this was just the most recent example of that. Most other media organizations didn't see a problem with any of this. They didn't care that the FAA was shutting down media access at the border because they haven't reported from the border anyway since last year. But some people did resist. Alex Jones, who you were required to hate, announced he's suing the FAA over this. He announced that this afternoon. Good for him. Fox News also decided to fight this, and we did. This afternoon, Pete Buttigieg's FAA was forced to relent, and they granted Fox an exemption. Our drone is now back in the air. What happened over the past 24 hours is an unprecedented attack on press freedom. Not that you'll ever read anything about it in the New York Times or the Washington Post, but we think there should be an accounting of it. Who did this and why? At least one senator, Roger Marshall of Kansas, announced that he's investigating the FAA. He wants to know who within the DHS requested this shutdown of the airspace so we couldn't show you what's happening there. Marshall also wants to know the extent of the White House's involvement in this, and we will be following this carefully because we think it's worth knowing who's trying to invalidate the First Amendment. In the meantime, we go to one of the bravest, least intimidated reporters out there, Fox's Bill Melugin, who joins us live. Bill, good to see you.
Tucker, good to see you. We've got some major breaking news we'd like to report to you. The situation at the International Bridge behind us has gotten so bad that CBP has just announced that effective immediately, they are temporarily closing down the Del Rio port of entry here, and all traffic trying to cross the bridge is now going to have to get rerouted 57 miles away to Eagle Pass, Texas, to the east. Why is it happening? The situation is deteriorating. We want to show you. Take a look at this video we shot from a Texas DPS helicopter today. Once the FAA grounded our drone, Texas state troopers brought us up in their helicopter to take a look at the situation. Again, what you're looking at, upwards of 11,000 migrants underneath that bridge after they crossed illegally into the United States from Mexico. Border Patrol down there completely overwhelmed. You can see they started building tents. Some of them started building structures with plants and sticks. It has significantly expanded in the last 24 hours, and we got to see exactly where they're coming from. Take a look at the second piece of video. We flew over the Rio Grande and Ciudad Acuña. You can see a steady stream of hundreds of those migrants just crossing from Mexico, walking across a dam, and then walking illegally into the United States. A third piece of video you see, they go on our shore. There's a dirt path right there. They walk right up that path, and that leads them right there to the International Bridge, where they are all congregating, and there are reports that upwards of 10,000 more migrants are on the way as we speak. The situation is so bad that the chief of Border Patrol for all of the U.S. actually flew out here to Del Rio this afternoon, and is down here right now. We'll send it back to you.
Bill Melugin, of course, thanks a lot, Bill. So the Nicki Minaj story continues tonight. The rapper this week asked questions about the COVID vaccine. That's not allowed. Some of the most powerful people in the country tried to make her shut up. We'll tell you who was behind that effort and why they failed. Our friend. Now, the Biden administration was planning to start rolling out its plan to give a shot.
Alright, getting a bunch of this lettering done on here. Catch you guys in a couple hours.